live. I'm really excited for this. Every time Tone and I have a conversation, it leads down a really, really great rabbit hole. So I'm really excited for this. Have the one, the only, the legendary Tone Vase. How you doing, bro?
Hey Nico, doing well in Dubai. It's about 1 in the morning, and man, I haven't gotten much sleep in a few days. But right after this, it'll be time to rest a bit. Dubai is crazy, man. We'll party here through the night.
I bet, man. I haven't. When was the last time I went to Dubai? Um, Dude, I haven't been since like teenage years. I haven't been in such a long time, but I do
It's
remember
changed.
really what's changed about it.
Oh no, I'm sure. Like since those years, man, like Dubai is becoming a lot more open, a lot more Western friendly. Let's put it that way.
So do they still allow alcohols in the do they allow alcohols in the hotel, or like do they allow alcohol in
Oh yeah,
hotels and stuff?
yeah. There's alcohol pretty much everywhere at this point. Yeah, I mean, like technically, you're supposed to have a hotel to have a liquor license, but everything has a hotel. Like everything that goes on is in a hotel.
Yeah, it looks like we're getting some comments in the stream. Says Tone, your video and sound is a little choppy.
Oh, from Maya.
Yeah.
Oh, that sucks. Um, so I can try to switch my internet to my SIM card instead of the hotel Wi-Fi.
I wonder if that would work.
I can see better.
We could try that.
I wonder how my audience is.
Yeah, we're getting the comments from your audience.
Oh, it's on my end. Your stream is fine, right?
Yeah. These are your audience.
All
This is
right, so
your
go to the original source. So if you're on my channel, go watch it on Simply Coin.
it's all from Restream, so it should be the same quality. Oh,
Really?
mm-hmm. Wineicus, is this live? Yes, Wineicus, it's live.
Oh, all right. Let me see if it's better. If I'm gonna see what the strength is of my SIM card, and if that's better, then I'll just switch it. My
Wineicus Tone
download
is on.
speed great.
Yeah, it's
I'm
always
not, I'm not-
the upload speed is that get you. The
yeah,
upload
let me just see
speed.
the upload. No, my cell phone's good. All right, let me switch. I'm
All
gonna
right.
switch.
See you in a second. Bear with us, everybody. Um, another crazy day in Bitcoin. See if Tone could come back. Oh, here he is again. Let's see. Moment of truth. Hey, Tone.
Hey.
Oh, there we go. It's fixed. Hell yeah. Okay.
Oh,
Awesome. Cool. All right. So that's fixed.
I need to have a chat with Marriott.
Yeah. All right, Tone. Now that we did live technical support on live stream, Tone, I'm going to start it off with this. What happened 2021, 2022? I feel like a lot of people got blue walled, including myself. I think a lot of people had expectations for 100K Bitcoin.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's certainly a one way to start an interview with someone at 1 in the morning after drinking. Yeah, look, from a technical perspective, it is super rare that the price of an asset goes and breaks the all-time high 6 months later or beyond that, and doesn't continue rising. It's a very rare event. I will place a bullish bet on that situation each and every time. When Bitcoin did break that $65,000 area, I mean, maybe we wouldn't have gotten to 100, but I expected 80, at least 80, and we just topped out at 68. I felt that it was pretty unexpected, and yeah, in hindsight, we can come back and we can come up with all these reasons as to why it happened. But yeah, a lot of us got caught by surprise, and we're still dealing with the consequences of this bear market. I've already said it months ago. I think this bear market's been the worst bear market that I've experienced, and this is my third.
What makes it worse than the first one? I feel like we had more volatility. I think we're only down 70%. So from your perspective, what makes it the worst? Is it because Bitcoin didn't hit certain price targets? And I'm going to add to that a little bit. Do you believe in the diminishing returns theory, right? Where just Bitcoin's just going to continue, it's still going to have, that upwards volatility, but it's going to be greatly diminished. Do you believe in that?
I do, but there'll be one more cycle of high volatility, and after that, the volatility should come down. But back to the question, what makes it the worst is that this time around, there's a lot more dependency on Bitcoins, a lot more businesses on Bitcoin. Almost, I don't know anyone that had already quit their job in 2013 bubble to be, dependent on Bitcoin. In 2017 is when the majority of the people just entered the market. And while they were entering the market, yeah, they started businesses, and a lot of those businesses felt the pain, but it was mostly, shitcoiners that felt most of the pain. And but this time around in 2021, uh, coming out of COVID from 2020, uh, I think a lot of people became very dependent on Bitcoin. Like 2020 had a complete overhaul with all the shutdown, and I think that so many people started their businesses on Bitcoin, started depending on Bitcoin, and then it goes to these ridiculous highs in 2021. And after that, it's this bear market after so many people are dependent on Bitcoin.
Is it that's what makes it bad? Is that a lot of these businesses, a lot of individuals are dependent on Bitcoin, and you think from your perspective that's what makes it bad?
Yeah, not only just businesses, also countries, right? Like El Salvador. El Salvador isn't really looking good right now, right? Like they got in, going into the bubble. They've been doubling down on it, and I really hope Bukele wins the re-election. But like if he doesn't win the re-election, I think the
Oh, Tone's internet looks like Tone's.
oh wow,
Oh, there you're back. You're back.
oh, did I cut out?
No,
That's
yeah,
weird.
you're back. No, all good.
Okay, all
Boy,
right.
so last thing you were saying, you said that El Salvador looks really bad right now.
It does. In the eyes of a lot of voters, other countries get to, talk shit about them because Bitcoin is down. And that could have an effect on Bukele's reelection. So I hope he gets reelected again. I still think that was the right move. I like that they're doubling down. They're going to buy more Bitcoin at the lows. But if Bukele doesn't win, this could be the major factor that causes him that creates a loss, brings in a president who could overhaul this initiative for Bitcoin, and that sets the whole space back. So these are the concerns. This is why this bear market is so crucial.
Yeah, and I think that not only Bukele, right, also Michael Saylor as well. The way that we've been kind of angling it on Simply on the regular show is they're paying their price of tuition. Just like I paid my price of tuition when I got in, and I'm pretty sure you paid your price of tuition when you got in, unless you got extremely lucky in the year and the time that you got in. But the vast majority of Bitcoiners that I know, they have to pay their price of tuition every time.
Yep. Yep, they're paying it now. Ironically, someone just tweeted out. So I am bullish. I do think that the price of Bitcoin will reverse this quarter. I think it's going to reverse this month. We have not yet broken the $17,500 low that we had recently in June. Not that recently now. It's about to be 6 months soon since the $7,500 low. We've come down to 18. There's a chance we're not going to break that low. There's also a significant chance that we will break that low. But if we do break that low, I think it's coming very, very soon, this month or next month. I would be surprised if we break the $17,500 low next year. I do think it's about to happen. And I think Bitcoin is about to start its bull phase again. And ironically, Novogratz is very bearish. So it's the opposite of the song from from 2018, where I was the bearish one and he was the bullish one.
Oh man. So let's talk a little bit about the next bull, right? So, if you look at Bitcoin's history, it hasn't broken this yet. It tends to get uber bullish before the next halvening, right? It starts to pick up, and then about 6 months to a year after the halvening, it goes parabolic, and then it collapses. That puts us on track to 2024, 2025 being the next time or the next parabola. Are you on board with that? Are the so-called is the cycle theory still in play here?
Is my audio better? I actually forgot to check my audio input before I started this thing, and I just did.
Um, it's I don't know, guys. Tell us in the chat, but I could hear you.
All right. How about now?
Yeah,
Well,
it's
hope it's
more
better.
steeper.
Okay. All right. So I I still like the cycle theory. I know a lot of people say that like cycles don't really exist, but we have a 4-year halving cycle, and the 4-year halving cycle drives the 4-year once every 4 years hype cycle. And I think next year, uh, the hype cycle, the FOMO is going to set in. The halving is coming. The halving is coming. Once we're 1 year away, there's going to be all these websites, ticking down the days. We got this many blocks left. We got this many days left. We got 3 months to go, 8 months to go. And I think the hype's going to set in. And I am looking for 2023 to be a big year uh, uh, for Bitcoin to break that 100K. And we may actually top out before the halving. It's happened before. We've topped out before the halving, started dropping a month and a half before the halving. The halving came, we continued to drop because the FOMO just got us super high. It would be great if we kick off the FOMO early next year and it keeps going through the halving for a full 1.5 year bull market. These Bitcoin bull markets, they tend to last maybe 9 months to 12 months. Like 2013, the price kind of started moving in January and it topped out in November. Then in 2017, same thing. We started moving around January, February, and we topped out in December. So here it is, one more. 4 years later. Well, in 2020 we did it as well, right? Like the 2020, we bottomed in March, and by April, we were at 65K. So again, that's a full move from 4,000 all the way up to 64,000 in less than a year. So I think we're going to have another one of these. Like the year before the halving, it's been happening. In 2013, it was the year after the halving, because that first halving, people were nervous. The programmers knew that the halving was going to work, but guys on the street, we were like, what happens when the first halving comes, and that block isn't halved, right? Like it was an unknown. And that was really concerning to a lot of people. Well, like, what would happen? Like, imagine if the first block after the next halving is still 6.125 Bitcoin. That instantly means that the 21 million cap that we've been talking about is gone.
Dude, that would be okay. So a lot to unpack there, because that's the first time my brain is still processing this, because I'm hearing what I'm hearing from other people is they're still waiting for 2024, 2025. So this is the first time I hear this theory, and it's really interesting. And anything's possible at the end of the day. So if it does head up to back to 100K in 2023, first question is, what do you think the top will be this next cycle, right? Because everyone thought 100K last cycle. Are we just in now? Is it just the bull runs are just going to be less impactful. So are we going to even hit 200K? Are we going to hit 150K? What are your thoughts?
I think at least 125, but I wouldn't rule out quarter mil. Uh, I I'm pretty confident that we will hit quarter mil by the next halving, not this one. But it's possible we can hit quarter mil in this one. Bitcoin liquidity is really drying up. By the way, guys, I wouldn't worry about this halving coming up, not to work. I was specifically talking about the very first halving, which is probably why Bitcoin didn't start rising until after that halving took place in very early 2013 or late 2012, whenever that took place. So back then, people were a little bit nervous, like, hey, what if it doesn't happen? So here are my two favorite drivers for Bitcoin, and they're sucking up liquidity out of the exchanges. And as liquidity gets sucked out of the exchanges, yes, it's easier for some wealthy whales to push the price up or down. But eventually, there is a short squeeze because there's just, if once FOMO sets in, there's just not enough Bitcoin to drag the market down. And the only place it can go is up. So here are my two biggest drivers that are taking Bitcoin liquidity off exchanges. Number of wallets with one Bitcoin in the wallets, one or more Bitcoin in the wallets. And the number of those wallets is rising. It's now over 900,000. I think when it hits 1 million, that's an awesome milestone. Nico, you there?
I'm here. I just made you full screen.
Oh, okay, because you disappeared on my end, and I'm like, oh, shit.
Tone's gonna switch from Zoom to Restream. He's liking it. I could tell. I know Tone.
I am liking it. I'm gonna take Q1 off after this year to just like restructure everything and probably learn how to use Restream because I gotta get off YouTube. I gotta stream to other platforms as well. So Restream seems like a good option. All right, so the number of wallets with one Bitcoin in them. I don't want to sound, like snobby, wealthy, elitist, but one Bitcoin is affordable. It really is. Globally, one Bitcoin is affordable. I know a lot of people don't have $19,000 to spare, but one Bitcoin should be affordable because if you save properly, if you have a decent job, even in other parts of the world, you should be able to accumulate one Bitcoin at these prices. Now,
all right, Tone, we'll be right back. Looks like his.
Oh man, do I get cut out again?
Oh, you're back.
Oh man, that sucks.
You said you were saying that one Bitcoin is affordable.
One Bitcoin is an achievable goal. For anyone middle class, and there's a lot of middle class people. There's tens of millions middle class people. So one Bitcoin is an achievable goal. And you got to realize that if a person is able to accumulate one Bitcoin, they're not speculating. I mean, that Bitcoin is for a long-term purchase. And if you can acquire one Bitcoin, you can acquire two Bitcoin. And we're almost at 1 million wallets with a single Bitcoin. And if the price of Bitcoin drops, I think the number of these people is going to rise because we are just talking one Bitcoin. These people would love to turn their one Bitcoin into two Bitcoin. And this is the Bitcoin that leaves exchanges for good. The other driver that is driving Bitcoin off of exchange is Lightning Network. There's now over 5,000 Bitcoins in the Lightning Network. Could be more. I'm not keeping up with the latest statistics. That's going to double very, very quickly. Once Bitcoin enters the Lightning Network, it doesn't really leave the system anymore. Once you're on the Lightning Network, you're pretty much committed to staying in the Lightning Network. You're not selling that Bitcoin. You're not moving it to an exchange. That's it. And these drivers are sucking liquidity out of the exchanges. And once a little bit of FOMO hits, I think the game is on. I think these two drivers are huge.
So let's talk a little bit about the macro. It doesn't look good. I think it was the IMF. I don't know, some of those weird international organizations that I'm not going to dig too much into, but they said that they're predicting that 2023 we're going to see a recession. So what are your thoughts on that? And then to kind of tie this into Bitcoin, because we're talking about Bitcoin, Bitcoin has been acting like a risk on asset. So if those predictions are true, and the Fed still hasn't, or any central bank really hasn't got a hold on inflation yet, and that could possibly force central banks' hands to continue to remain hawkish. Do you believe that is an influence on Bitcoin? Because Bitcoin has only ever existed in this bull market, right? In this macro bull market environment. Do you think that could potentially play a role? Do you think that could potentially affect the price of Bitcoin, perhaps delay the bull market? What are your thoughts?
The answer is yes, but here's some good news for you, your audience, my audience. I actually think that the stock market, the risk on assets are going to reverse as well. I don't think the massive bull market in equities is over. We started this bull market in 2009 after that crash, and I don't think it's over yet. I think equities are going to go up. I think they're going to go up along with the dollar. And the Fed can continue to be hawkish, but they can't be too hawkish. I don't think the Fed will raise rates more than a quarter going forward to just 25 basis points, several times a year to go up slowly. Because what the Fed is actually doing by raising rates is that they're imploding the fixed income market. If you look at the bond prices, when interest rates rise, bond prices go down. People buy bonds, these 5-year bonds, 10-year bonds, and 30-year bonds, let's say. You bought a 10-year bond 3 years ago. So your bond has 7 more years to go. You bought this bond with an interest rate of 1%, if you're lucky. Now the interest rate is 4%. I think, or like 3.5, soon to be 4. So your bond is only paying 1%. People buying bonds today are getting 4%. Your bond is getting you 1%. And you still have 7 years to go in this bond. This bond's crap. That's why the price of these bonds goes down. The notional value, the coupon, it's 1 in the morning. And I'm not a fixed income guy. But anyway, the face value, there it is. The face value of that bond is not $10,000 anymore. It's like 800, 700. This is why if you look at TLT, the bond ETF, it's literally crashing. Can I do screen share on this?
Yeah, you could do anything. It's great. It's like Zoom, but on steroids.
Window. Beautiful.
So, okay.
Sure. Cool. All right. So this is the dollar. And I do think the dollar is going to pull back a little bit because nothing goes up in a straight line. But if I open bonds and I look at the 10-year ETF, it's at its lowest price since like 2011. This is a crash in the bond prices. And smart people have been selling this. And what do they do with the cash? The cash has to go somewhere. I don't believe in an everything bubble. Everything goes down. Real estate goes down. Stocks go down. Bonds go down. Bitcoin goes down. Gold isn't going anywhere. Money has to go somewhere. And I think the money is going to go into the equity market, into the tech sector, into American companies mostly because Europe is just totally screwed. They have no energy whatsoever. They're gonna. I don't even know how they're gonna heat their homes. And people with money in Europe, they're gonna say, our continent, quasi-continent, is about to implode. Where do we put our money? And the safest place to put your money is probably in U.S. equities.
Interesting. So it's really, this is refreshing because the general consensus right now from a lot of the other guys, and you want to show that?
This is the historic. Oh, you know what I'm going to show? So I just did a presentation. I'm actually going to open the presentation because there was a cool chart in it. I did this presentation in Kazakhstan, so it was in Russian, but I may redo this in English. Let me go to hit the present button.
That's right,
Let's
everybody.
skip some
Tone Vase is about to
screens.
speak some Russian,
Yeah.
which they'll soon make illegal.
Yes. Well, some countries already have.
Oh man.
Oh yeah. So I talked about how I am. I think the BRICS are going to be crushing like the G7 countries. Talked a little
What is
bit
BRICS
about.
for anyone that doesn't understand what that means?
BRICS is the economic union, economic collaboration between B is Brazil, R is Russia, I is India, um, C is China, and
So
S is South Africa.
non-Western countries.
Yeah, so South Africa doesn't really contribute anything useful to to their collective GDP. Like if you look at um, what these countries producing, and this is really interesting actually. Not to dive too deep into politics, and the projections were. This is an article from early 2018 that had projected that the BRICS would be GDP PPP, purchasing power parity is the better metric, and it was predicted that in 2017 they were about the same. The BRICS versus the G7. Now the G7 is a group of 7 countries. It's U.S., Canada, U.K., Germany, France, and Japan, I believe. But there's a map. I'll show you guys in a second. And so it's 7 countries versus 5 countries. So the 7 countries have a little bit of an advantage. And it was still seen that based on purchasing power parity of their GDP, the BRICS would start to crush the G7 countries, the traditional powerhouses in the economy, by 2023. COVID set a lot of it back, but even already here in 2022, the BRICS are doing better. Now, China is still somewhat locked down, and I can go into my conspiracy theory as to why. Russia is in a little bit of trouble economically as well. Not even so much from the sanctions. The sanctions hurt, but I think the thing that hurts Russia even more right now than the sanctions is once they announced mobilization, basically almost like the draft, a lot of Russians are just leaving Russia. Like probably almost as many people left Russia as left Ukraine, and more Russians are trying to leave. So Russia is losing a lot of people, and that would certainly affect their GDP.
Okay, hold on a second, because that's really interesting, and this does relate to Bitcoin as well. So you're from the school of thought that this war will continue to escalate. The West is just throwing money at it, so they're not de-escalating too. This could potentially be really, really bad. I just want to remind everybody, Russia holds, I think it's the #1 nuclear arsenal in the world, and the United States is a close second. So, I mean, I think we have much bigger problems than Bitcoin's volatility at that point. But does that not worry you? I mean, mobilization basically means drafting people to go to war, basically.
Pretty much. Look, it worried me from day one. No one seemed to be worried about this military conflict. I've been worried about it from the start, and I don't see an end to it anytime soon, personally. I mean, I would love to be wrong. I would love for there to be an end to this very soon, but it doesn't look like there will be, so it is something we need to deal with for the future. At the moment, I don't think it's going to go nuclear. At the moment, I don't. But it worries me based on who's in the White House, because he doesn't know what day it is. And who knows who's really pulling the strings back there.
Man, it's scary. But I mean, what do they really have to gain from? I mean, no one wins there, right? I think it's in the, what was the term that they call it? They call it MAD, mutually assured destruction.
Destruction, right?
No one really wins in that scenario, do they?
I agree. I agree. I don't know. I don't know. These are very, very crazy times that we're living in. We weren't around in the 60s when this was the last time we were this close. So we'll see. I also haven't kept up with the news. I've just been too busy with the events. The 2-day event in Kazakhstan, and then I immediately came to Dubai, and then I've just been here at this 3-day event. And then I have tomorrow will be my first day, but I got to catch up on other stuff, not geopolitics. But going back to the BRICS for a second, there's a great article. I'm referencing the article. I strongly advise people to go and check it out. It's pretty recent. It's 2022, and it just talked about like where the BRICS are out competing the West, and it's super interesting. So the article talks about how Western-style liberal democracies, which is where you get to elect your politician, and anyone can be elected, from a movie star to a comedian to a Donald Trump. These Western-style liberal democracies are on a major retreat all over the world, including the U.S. The U.S. will never let Trump or anyone like Trump win again. So the article hits it right on the money that the world is trending towards non-liberal democracies like the United States, like Canada. They are becoming more like Russia, China. I'm in the UAE. There's no elections here. The world is trending in that direction where you get leaders that could be reelected and reelected forever, and they kind of control the voting situation. But here's where the BRICS are competing. Energy is Russia. Rare earth metals, Russia and China. Food, Brazil, Russia as well, actually. Research and development, China. Cheap goods, China. Effective mass production, China. Tech talent, India. Fertilizers, Russia. English speaking, India. Again, billion people. Cyber, military, and space technology, again, Russia and China. And if you look at them in terms of military as well, I know the BRICS is not a military alliance, but you combine the military of Russia, China, and India, and it's a massive force. It's a bigger force than anything the West has. All the West has is the United States and Turkey. And I don't even know how long Turkey is going to stay connected to the United States instead of flipping to the BRICS. But I was going to talk about that later. But here's the most interesting part in this article. And they pointed out, and they hit it right on the money. The only major pillar they lack, and I'm just reading the part in the blue, the only major pillar they lack is the young, creative talent to develop the future economy. They will never have that in an autocratic command and control system. They produce armies of worker bees, but not the out-of-the-box thinkers that rebel. So, and that's huge. So China and to a much lesser extent Russia, and to a slightly lesser extent India, they don't have that out-of-the-box thinker. Like, they're not going to have that college dropout to go and build some creative product. This is why China is so good at copying other innovative technologies, but they're not exactly leading the way in, let's just say Uber would have never come out of China, but it came out of the US. And if most of the world does become this autocratic, 1984 world where everything is like being controlled, then you're never going to have another out-of-the-box thinker. And then we're not going to have any more breakthrough technologies unless they are completely anonymous based, kind of like what Satoshi did with Bitcoin. But then again, if every single kid is going through these super controlled systems, like if you've seen the recent videos coming out of China, like their surveillance technology is to such a point that they have cameras in the classroom with kids, like 9, 10-year-old kids, and they can tell by the kids' facial expressions during classrooms that something is wrong and the kid is not thinking like the teacher wants him to think.
It's crazy.
So they can identify that from the camera of your facial expression.
Yep. And I'm pretty sure that Western elites fell in love with that model, and
They
they're
love it.
salivating at the mouth to try to bring it to the U.S. Here's an example before we move on with your presentation, and I want to get your thoughts on this. It was a couple hours ago. It's from Disclose.tv. Went a little viral on Twitter. Jury rules Infowars Alex Jones must pay more than $900 million in damages to Sandy Hook families. And the reason for that is they're trying to shut him up. They're trying to scare him. They're trying to coerce him because he goes against the narrative. Whatever you feel about Alex Jones, look, the United States, we said that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, invaded the country, completely destroyed it. And you don't see any of the leaders that were responsible for that. The New York Times being liable $900 million. And it's what you said, Tone. I could never have imagined this in the United States of America, whose the First Amendment is literally freedom of speech. So, anyways.
Right. No, I couldn't agree more. And that trial was a complete joke. It was a complete and utter joke. But people don't realize, like we do see these videos coming out of China, and we don't know what's the truth and what isn't the truth. But people have to realize that the size of China is smaller than the continental U.S., like not even counting Canada. Like the continental U.S. is slightly bigger than China. And yet China has the same number of people as America, plus 1 billion people. It's hard to comprehend how many people that is. And like that's going to be the future. It's going to be China. It's going to be India. China's birth rate isn't high. India's birth rate is still pretty high. I mean, that will be the future. And if you do compare, India, China plus Russia's military, it crushes NATO. It really does. And you don't want these countries to get together. So what I did was I took a look at this map, and these are all the NATO countries, and plus Japan. So that's the G7 kind of plus NATO. And then this is all of the other economic collaborations between nations. So these are all of the other economic unions. So only China has a union with Europe. And notice that like Germany and France and Spain, the big European countries that think they still rule the world, they are not part of it. It's only Eastern Europe. And once you combine that with this interesting map, which is which countries voted that Russia did not violate human rights by invading Ukraine. So anyone that's in blue voted that Russia is in violation of human rights. Anyone that's in yellow said they don't want to vote because they don't want to, they still want to keep relations with Russia. And anyone that voted red, all the countries in red, said that Russia did not violate human rights. So obviously all of the NATO nations, including Turkey, voted with the United States and Europe and Ukraine against Russia. But other countries, including the Republic of Georgia, which Russia invaded in 2008 for similar reasons that they invaded Ukraine, like they didn't want NATO on their border in these countries. Even Georgia voted with Russia, and Kazakhstan, where I just came from, voted with Russia. Now, a lot of the people in these countries are very angry at Russia, and they would not have voted this way. But the country's leadership did. Obviously, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and UAE, where I am, they abstained. India abstained. Mexico abstained. Venezuela abstained. Indonesia abstained. And these countries are super important. So when I combined, when I just did just took a look at all the possibilities, and I took a look at what the future looks like which global country will one day soon side with the BRICS, which is Russia, China, India, Brazil, side with the BRICS because the West is collapsing. versus which countries would probably side with North America, mostly from an economic perspective, not a military, not a global war military perspective, but from an economic perspective. And this is the map that I have. So if I mean, dark red is, they're already part of the BRICS. Light red are the countries that would rather, I believe, side with the BRICS than the West. I did put Mexico as siding with the West, because if Mexico suddenly became a military alliance and an economic alliance with Russia, the U.S. military would invade Mexico, pretty much the way Russia invaded Ukraine. The same exact thing would happen to Mexico by the United States if Mexico was to suddenly cooperate with Russia and have Russia send in weapons and military assistance into Mexico. Um, and But here are the countries that, that's basically my list that I was putting together. But on a map, Venezuela, I'm watching Venezuela carefully. Joe Biden went to the Saudis to try and get oil out of them, and they kind of laughed at him and said no. So now he's begging Venezuela to give oil to the United States so that the United States can sell extra oil to Europe. Either way, Europe's getting screwed. So Venezuela is a key country. I think Turkey and Hungary are key countries. They are members of NATO. They are European. Well, that's European Union. This is both. There is members of NATO, and I think if any country switches and gets out of NATO and potentially leaves the European Union, it would be Hungary. A country that could potentially leave NATO, and that is Turkey. They have a pretty good relationship with Russia, and if they have to be forced to choose sides, it would be interesting what they do. And Saudi Arabia and Iran are two very important countries, but they hate each other. So I don't know how they're going to get along in the same union, in the same economic union. But if Putin, let's say, brokers a peace deal between Iran and Saudi, I know people say it's impossible, but Trump brokered a peace deal between Israel and the UAE, where the Israeli national anthem was played at the Abu Dhabi Palace, something that people also thought was impossible. So impossible things can happen. And finally, perhaps the most important country is Indonesia. Indonesia has a higher purchasing power parity GDP than even the UK and Brazil and France. And this country also voted yes. They did not want to vote against Russia. And that is a country that, if they flip and join an economic union with the BRICS, I mean, the West is in trouble economically. All they have is Japan, which is having its issues, Australia, which is still kind of in lockdowns. Europe doesn't have the energy to heat themselves, and the U.S. is in a giant political battle trying to figure out if there is 800 genders or 801. And we all know about Canada. You can't have a bank account if you donated $10 to a trucker. So, like, what is the West clinging to at this point? Meanwhile,
my hope is Bitcoin. That's my hope for all this.
So, getting back to how I got into this presentation, I didn't mean to talk about geopolitics, but this was a chart I put together back in 2017, I think, early 2017. The only other time I showed this chart on a presentation. Actually, make this full screen, make this bigger. And this is my history of the S&P 500. And it goes through these stages of 15 years of no movement. It happened back around the Fed creation. It happened back in the 30s and 40s. It happened in the 70s. And then it happened in the 2000s. 15 years. And the price, stayed about the same. And every time it breaks out, tends to go up 10x. And here we are. And during the move to 10x last time, we had a crazy catastrophic event of the 1987 crash, where the stock market lost 23% in a single day. And we had ours this time as well, COVID, where the stock market just crashed because of a lockdown. And I still have a pretty high target here. And if we have high inflation, that can help the stock market rise because the stock market still goes up with inflation. So, like I said, the first time I showed this chart was at a presentation in Acapulco. The same one that I have a cameo in the show The Anarchist. I know you don't have time for TV shows. Did you watch The Anarchist on HBO?
That's the one that you recommended, right?
Yeah.
I saw the Kung Fu one in San Francisco. That one was freaking awesome.
Oh, you saw both seasons?
I saw. Yeah, why'd they cut it short? That kind of bummed me out a little bit.
No, COVID. No, season 3 is coming.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
show.
COVID.
The
Yeah, I
Anarchist,
recommended
no, I
Warrior,
haven't seen that one.
HBO's Warrior. Great show.
But yeah, so okay, a lot.
So
Tone.
this is an old one. So this is my 2017 picture. And my
There's a lot to
2017
unpack.
Yeah, my 2017 picture, it was right here, and my target was 75,000 in the Dow. And here is the picture now. Sorry, that's the 2017 picture. And here we are, 2017, we were right here. And here we are. And I think we're still going to go higher on the S&P. I don't know what's going to drive it, but the TA picture here says we need to go up like we did in the 20s before we have a catastrophic crash. And we're not doing that. It's just slow and steady. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Ask your questions. I'm going to cut screen share on this one.
You gave me a whole presentation. I like it. You gave me so much source material. Okay, so Tone, based on what you're telling me, it looks very bad for the West. It looks more positive towards the East. We've been living in a unipolar world really since World War II. Your theory of the case is that world is dead, and now we're moving into a new world. I think
pretty much. How do I get? Where are you? Hold on. Okay, yeah, I'm off screen share. Okay, there we go. Yeah, we're definitely moving where we have been living in a unipolar world for the last 30 years, where the U.S. was the only global superpower, and that is coming to an end. Depending on how Russia and Ukraine situation ends, we're either going to go back to a dual power world of Russia, U.S., China, or a triple China, Russia, and U.S. And because of U.S.'s stupidity of turning an enemy out of Russia instead of a friend, it will be Russia and China against the U.S. And that's not good.
Yeah, and that's actually not the first time I've heard that argument about turning Russia into an enemy. I think ideologically speaking, Russia has more in common with the U.S. than it does with China. So I guess from one perspective of the country, the other perspective, not so much. But yeah, no, I agree with that. So I'm going to take it back to Bitcoin because we got about 15 minutes left. Where does Bitcoin play in all of this? If we are moving to a more autocratic world, autocrats don't like freedom. Bitcoin is freedom enabling technology. How are they going to react to this? I mean, you saw the White House report, the digital assets framework, right?
No, but I can imagine what it said. They don't like Bitcoin, and yet Russia just said that Bitcoin is perfectly fine and legal for all international transactions.
Well, they're trying to get around U.S. sanctions, right?
Right. And after Russia said that, the next day, guess what Europe said? We're going to make Bitcoin transactions illegal, right? So again, dictatorships versus democracies, and yet democracies seem to hate Bitcoin more.
I mean, but I think that's one of the beauties of Bitcoin, right? It exposes everybody's incentives. Yeah. They call Nayib Bukele a dictator, and Nayib Bukele's country has a lot more freedom than the U.S.,
Right. And I'm here in Dubai. I'm here in the UAE. The biggest Bitcoin conferences are here as well. Like other than Bitcoin 2022 or Bitcoin 2023, the next biggest ones are here.
Pacific Bitcoin.
And again,
November. Pacific Bitcoin November is going to be pretty dope too.
Pacific Bitcoin, yeah, that one's going to be that one's going to be pretty big. But I've been to conferences here in the UAE with thousands of people, 3,000 people as well. And again, not a democracy, and yet not only are they perfectly okay with Bitcoin, they seem to be even okay with shitcoins.
Interesting. So why is this happening, Tone? Is this the moral decay of society? Is the West not? Because like if you look at Russia, for example, Russia had the thing is like 70, 80 years of collectivism, to put it lightly. That they learned lessons from the past. And I think it was Solzhenitsyn, actually, the author of Gulag Archipelago. It's not in his books, but it was one of his interviews where he said that the West has not learned the lessons of the East, right? Do you think that's the case? Or do you, and I also approach it from another angle too, is if you look at, some of the last days of the Roman Empire, you kind of saw something similar with the moral decay of society. And you could make a pretty good argument that it was due to the money being broken. It was the fictitious money. It was this idea in people's minds that money grew out of thin air, right? So, we have incredible work by Jeff Booth and other authors and other Bitcoiners that are making the case that if you fix the money, you fix the world. If somehow the U.S. government, gives up that privilege, that monopoly on the creation of money, do you see hope for the West? Or do you believe that they're so entrenched? I think the last time you came on the show, we had an awesome conversation. You were making the theory that the U.S. is going to divorce. There's going to be a breakup of the U.S.
I think that's the best hope. I don't see it. I don't see the West turning around. The West has been moving towards collectivism, towards Marxism. Yes, there's still elections. Yes, there's still democracy. But how good is your democracy when all the people have been somewhat brainwashed into full socialism? Your democracy doesn't mean much, but not everyone. So a U.S. divorce, I think, is the best option going forward. Hopefully, this divorce would be non-violent. Hopefully, half of the United States would be able to split into a different country and go its own way. But with that comes the collapse of the dollar. So I'm not expecting this anytime soon. Well, soon, like by the end of the decade, but towards the end of the decade, not coming up at this halving. So I think that is the best option. That is the best option I'm hoping for. That's one of the things that's kind of keeping me from somewhat surrendering the U.S. passport for hope that maybe Florida and Texas will convince all the states in between and take a piece of California just for that outlet to the Pacific Ocean. Like maybe take the San Diego area with them, and that becomes a separate country, and all the socialism can stay up north, and the more traditional American values can stay down south.
Yeah, but you and I both know. Okay, you and I both know it doesn't work like that in terms of the collectivists stay up north, stay there, don't bother us down here. That's not how they work, man. It's and you and I both have experienced this, right? You were born in the Soviet Union. I come from Venezuela.
Yep.
So you and I both know that that's not how it works, man. These people, and when I mean that, I mean the people that believe in that collectivist ideology, they play for all the keeps, and they don't want people to leave. Look at the example in Cuba where Cubans have to get on a raft. Look at the example of East and West Berlin. People are willing to jump over a wall. It's usually not a good sign that your ideology requires a wall or an ocean to keep people inside. But the reason I'm bringing those examples is because you can never underestimate how far they're willing to go for power.
Oh yeah, no, I agree with you. Like it's gonna be the world's gonna change, and I think it's inevitable. Look, if a single strong nation can hold the world together, we'd all be Romans or Greeks. It just doesn't happen. Or Brits, it doesn't happen. America's America's turn to control the world is ending, and we're witnessing it before our eyes. And if it wasn't for Bitcoin, I have no idea what I would be doing right now.
Hmm. Yeah, man, it's really scary times. So, but you're making the case that all of this stuff what you're describing is good for Bitcoin, but how so? Wouldn't you believe that for these autocrats, for these totalitarians, you would think that that's the, but it's what you said. It's really interesting. Is that the countries that are supposed to be liberal democracies are the ones that are showing the most hostility,
Right.
and yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting, and that's the crazy part.
are they doing this out of because it's convenient? Once they get power, do you think they'll just take another tone?
What do you mean?
Let's say once they get the US out of the way and the effectiveness of US sanctions, do you believe that they'll change their tone on Bitcoin?
Well, El Salvador won't, right? Uh, Russia, maybe not, right? Like when a country embraces Bitcoin, they like look at El Salvador. Like Max Kaiser is living there. Other people want to live there, want to move there. So once a country realizes that they get all this talent, they get all the people, man, like so many people are moving to the UK, not the UK, sorry, the UAE, where I am right now. The only reason why Americans have not fled to Dubai is because it doesn't give them a tax break. If you're an American, it doesn't matter where you live. Like you still have to pay the same amount of taxes. So for Americans, moving to Dubai doesn't do anything. But for a European, moving to Dubai is huge. That is why all the wealthy Europeans, all the entrepreneurs, they're all moving to Dubai.
Hmm.
And like if a country like Russia or other countries want to attract young talent after this military conflict is over, they'll have to embrace Bitcoin. They will have no choice. As much as we hate shitcoins, as much as we hate all this stuff, NFTs, the latest thing is play to earn. Like I go to all these events, like I'm on these panels arguing with these guys. As much as we don't like it as Bitcoin maximalists, uh, this, this is what's drawing in the money. This is what's drawing in people that want to try and innovate. I mean, yeah, they innovate through shitcoins, and yes, there's a lot of scamming going on. But who knows? Like 1 in 1,000 of these projects is going to be successful, and that's where all the young kids are drawn to. And one of these days, another genius is going to build something through a shitcoin. I mean, it's honestly, it's just inevitable. I would never place a bet on it because it's 1 out of 1,000, and everyone thinks their shitcoin will succeed. But I mean, it's never going to top Bitcoin. They don't even compete with Bitcoin. They're not competing for money. They're basically unlicensed, unregistered securities. But remember, if my future of the US breaking up, the concept of a security is gone. There is no SEC to police the world. So the world becomes tokens.
Hmm. The world becomes a giant shitcoin casino.
Right.
Hmm. Well, Tone, I really enjoyed that. You sent me down a rabbit hole. You had opinions that were contrary to the general consensus right now. And I really appreciate that. I think it's an interesting theory about the U.S. breaking up. Me and you talked for hours in private about this. Um, let's see where the cards fall. But I think the thing that we can agree on at the end of this is it's still a bright orange future, to steal Corey's line, for Bitcoin.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more.
Awesome. All right, man. Get some sleep. It's what, 3 in the morning over there?
No, it's only 2 in the morning. Yeah, your show was an hour. Actually, watching the live chat, there was a few good questions we never got to, but that's okay. I'll try to.
I'll scroll up.
Um,
We can hit them if you want. Oh, there's a lot. Oh, here we go. Sergio, hi Tone, got to go. Entering another meeting. I'll ask the question for the weekly MAs in another stream. What are the move? Is that moving averages?
Yeah, no, I'll talk about that on my price stream when I do it, like today or tomorrow. Let's skip that one. Anything else?
Yeah, coin. I love when people say that it's not real socialism. This is related to totalitarianism, not socialism. Soviet Union was a totalitarian. My friend, it always ends the same way, dude. Okay, here we go. Gold got popularity because of global commerce. Not is the time for Bitcoin. Interesting. Okay, well, like you said, there's so many comments that I can't really find any questions. Oh, Guillermo kind of threatening me. Nico will become a shitcoin hodler. Never, bro. This is simply Bitcoin. Bitcoin ride or die. I'm either going up with the ship or going down. Oh, we got one last one from Diogenes. Tone, do you run a full node yet?
I used to run a full node. I somewhat have a full node. Surprisingly, I still use fiat mostly because I'm a public person and for tax reasons. I haven't gotten out of it. Again, I will have some incredible stuff to say and things I do once I no longer have to pay those taxes. But until I do, I like to keep my life simple, and I still use the traditional financial system. I try to keep as little money in PayPal as possible, but at the moment I travel so much, and I'm just never in one place. It's hard to run a node. You can do it. Again, another thing that I want to get going in the first quarter. Used to run a full node when I was more in one place, but at the moment I have no home. So because I have no home, it's a lot harder. I don't have my own internet connection, open ports. So it's a challenge. It's a technological challenge. I haven't solved yet how to travel with a node.
You should check out Nodl, virtual private server. You can run a Nodl anywhere from
Yeah,
anywhere
I
around the
know,
world.
but it's a big box to carry with me.
No.
I'm gonna.
You don't have to carry a piece of hardware. You connect to their server and it's encrypted, right? And you could run your own node that way.
I know, but the point is not to connect to someone else's server, right?
Yeah, I mean there is some trust there, but the reason I say that is because it's perfect for digital nomads like yourself.
So I'm going to work on a solution. I'm actually going to check out what Start 9 has with that new box that they're coming out with.
Yeah, but I still think you need to plug in somewhere with that one.
So we'll see. I'm going to talk to Mr. Hodel about it. He's my go-to consulting guru on things like this.
Interesting. All right. I think we have a question from Rave Elevator. He answered this in the beginning, bro. Tone, you want to give a quick reply to that?
What is it? Does Tone see a relief rally in December, then crash again? No, I actually see a rally starting this month or next month, and I see us continuing bullishness in December. I'm really bullish right now. I know Novogratz is very bearish, and I'm bullish. So someone should do the remake of that song.
I haven't even heard the first song. Anyways, Tone, I don't want to take more of your time. I really enjoyed this. Every time you come on, we have a chat. It's a great time. Hope to see you again soon. Around and about. Why don't you tell everybody where they could find you? People watching on Tone's channel, you already know that answer, but people watching on Simply's either Twitter or YouTube, you could tell everybody what you're working on, what's going on. You should show the financial summit. And,
oh yeah,
yeah.
Almost forgot. All right, one more screen share, guys, oh yeah, it's not a double click on this one. Yeah, so those of you watching on my channel would already know. So the financial summit Nico was at the last financial summit in the Dominican Republic. Our next one coming up is in Bali This is the gorgeous resort we will be staying in. It is designed for the financially inclined, traders, money managers, VCs, just high net worth individuals that have been successful, looking to talk to people. And it's a 5-day, basically a 5-day brainstorming sessions on how to invest, how to best to invest your hard-earned money. And that's what we're doing in Bali, November 1 to 6th. Still time to sign up. Still have a few days left. You can find me all over social media, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. Everything is Tone Vase. And Nico, for my audience, since we're streaming on my channel, tell them more about yourself and Simply Bitcoin.
Oh, wow. I'm giving a shill on my own stream. I love it. Yeah, guys, you can find me. Just search Simply Bitcoin on Twitter or on YouTube. You'll find me. And if you want to follow my personal account, BitVolt7 on Twitter, you'll find me as well. Really enjoyed it. You don't have to be that financially inclined to go to the financial summit, because I'm just a toxic Bitcoin maxi that just likes to stack. And I had a great time, right? Drinking, you had poker games. I'll leave it at that without getting into too many details. But it was a great time. I definitely recommend it. I want to go to the Bali one. I can't go this year because the rest of this year is going to be fucking crazy. I go to New York in 2 weeks, then LA for Pacific Bitcoin. Then I go to Colorado for the end of the year. I'm going to be all over the place. I can't really travel. But definitely in the coming years. Tone, thank you so much for coming on, my friend. And I will see you around.
All right. If you're in New York, I can recommend you my favorite steakhouse. You can meet some of my friends. You can take my place when we go there. When you go there,
I will be streaming live from Tone Vase' his apartment. It's Simply Bitcoin live from Tone's. All right, guys. I'll see you guys later. I'm gonna play the outro. Tone, you could stay or not stay. It's up to you, bro. All right, it's gonna take 30
I'll
seconds.
Check it out. I'll stay.
All right, let's do it.
Which one's the best crypto asset? Well, Bitcoin's the best crypto asset. Okay. What's the second best? There is no second best.